No, this is not a clickbait title, and before I make Drake fans upset, I'm going to make Kendrick Lamar fans upset first. So when it comes to the GNX album by Kendrick Lamar, which debuted at #1 this week as the recording of the video, the argument online from Kendrick Lamar fans is that, hey, Kendrick Lamar sold less numbers than Drake, but Kendrick Lamar had no rollout, and it was a surprise album. You guys gotta stop saying that. What are the disadvantages of having a surprise album? If people don't know about it, then they don't know that it's out. Because the album sales are calculated from an entire week. You cannot say within 7 days that anybody who's a fan of hip hop, anybody that would enjoy Kendrick Lamar, did not know that his album was out. Kendrick Lamar had the greatest promotion of all time by having one of his biggest years in his career without having a single album put out, just by releasing 4 diss tracks. So you got to stop using that, because when you make debates that are easily broken down, you move people away from what's most important. You're just wasting time. So Kendrick Lamar having the biggest year ever, within those 7 days, anybody that knew he was coming out, I'm going to go ahead and say they knew it within the first day alone. They definitely knew it before that weekend was out. So there's no reason for Kendrick Lamar fans to be running around saying he did a surprise album. He was too popular to do a surprise album. Too popular. He was too big. Everybody knew it was out, and everybody went to listen. So Kendrick Lamar basically saved himself money. He knew this was a year he didn't need promotion. And we also must take into account that Kendrick Lamar announces his album. He knows that Drake is going to try to do something to hate on that in another video coming up here soon. So the best course of action, let his artists drop, other artists on, not PG Lane, but artists that's on TDE drop, which a couple did put out their albums, and then do a surprise album on a week where he's not going to affect anybody. So no surprise album. You cannot use that as an argument. Stop it, because I'm going to help you out now by making Drake fans mad. Drake fans are saying all of this promotion, his biggest year yet, his #1 hit, on a diss track for Not Like Us being one of the biggest records of all time. And this man only sold 319,000 copies. I say copies because I'm a little older, and they're saying that Drake sold 401,000 with his last album, For All the Dogs. And I'm looking at everybody video talking about this subject, and I'm just blown away. I'm like, is anybody going to mention this? Is anybody going to talk about what's right in our face? So let's break down these numbers. Drake releases For All the Dogs. It becomes the #1 album in the country, which was expected. But out of that 401, 381,000, let me get my math right. 391,000 units were sold simply from streaming. So 391,000 was sold from people listening to Drake tracks on different streaming apps, such as Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, etc., YouTube Music. So Kendrick Lamar did 319,000. From streaming was about 285. Yeah, 285,000. Was from streaming alone. So from streaming alone, Drake sold 106,000 more units than Kendrick Lamar. Keep that number in your head. 106,000 units. This is embarrassing for Drake, simply because Drake had 23 tracks on his album. Everybody always wants to know, why does Drake have so many songs on all of his albums? For All the Dogs wasn't even a double album, and he had 23 tracks. Drake does this because the numbers are calculated by streams. Now let's compare this to Kendrick Lamar only releasing 12 songs. That's it. Just 12 songs. 12 songs get you 285,000 streams. 23 songs get you 391,000, only 106,000 more. At this point, you would have to be honest and look at the numbers and ask yourself, what would happen if Kendrick Lamar released 12 more tracks? Let's be specific. 11 more tracks. You have the biggest publicity of the year. Drake fans, you're saying that Kendrick Lamar fans cannot use the fact that this was a surprise album, right? So this works against you, because you're saying that you know people are going to check in to listen to Kendrick Lamar. Would Kendrick Lamar not have easily sold 106,000 more streams if he had 11 more tracks in his most publicized year ever? If we were to be honest with ourselves, if you look at Kendrick Lamar's track listing for GNX, they're all relatively close. You may have songs like Squabble or Luther that are up there, but like even on the songs people aren't talking about, they're all high up on the charts and on the numbers. So if he were to have 11 more tracks, you can almost double the number. And this 600,000 units projected, Kendrick Lamar would have easily hit. We're not taking into account the fact of the probability of 11 of those tracks also being hits. This can be verified because we know that Kendrick Lamar is coming out with another album, which will be more songs on this. And I would assume that Kendrick Lamar didn't put the big all banger hits on just the first 12 songs. He had enough with songs like Luther. He had enough with songs like Squabble. He had enough with songs like TV Off. So, I mean, when I look at his numbers, before we even go into that, when Kendrick Lamar surprise album dropped and I'm looking at it, he only has 12. That goes right in line with Kendrick Lamar's thinking. He never does anything to purposely try to reach these big numbers. He's a conscious rapper, for God's sake. He never projects to, on purpose, get all of these numbers. He's getting all of these numbers off love, whereas Drake puts out a gajillion tons of songs. This is why I always felt that it's odd that Drake fans would try to say that Drake sells more units than Kendrick Lamar. When I'm looking at Drake, not only has more albums, but Drake has way more songs on these albums. Let's take this song for song, and let's take this that when Kendrick Lamar leaves for a couple of years and come back, he always reaches number one on all of his projects. So when you're comparing apples to apples, Kendrick Lamar far outsells Drake. Look at anybody you debate in the barbershop and honestly ask yourself, if Kendrick Lamar had 23 tracks on GNX, it would have, I don't even want to talk about the 401,000 Drake did for All the Dogs because it would have easily blown past that. I want to talk about the projected 600,000, which he would have hit. Kendrick Lamar focuses on one thing, tunnel vision. Drake dissed him, he dissed Drake back. Kendrick Lamar wasn't trying to break the record and have the number one most played diss song of all times. He was focused on just hurting Drake. And in this, because of the music, because of the quality, because of the people loving it, it reaches these numbers. If Kendrick Lamar was purposely trying to reach Drake, he'd do it, which I'm going to show again in my next video talking about Kendrick just announcing his tour with SZA. So let's all be honest with ourselves. This man almost beat Drake, who put almost double the amount of songs out with just 12 songs. One closing note. When Drake dropped For All the Dogs, 23 tracks. He couldn't get 23 tracks in the top 5 on the 200 Billboard chart. But guess who did? Kendrick Lamar. Drake fans are saying Kendrick Lamar cannot have a number one without Drake, which is insane to me. But he did it in the same year with Squabble Up, which is not going to be the biggest mega hit on the album. That's going to be when he releases the video for TV Off. He did it with Squabble Up in the same year, again proving Drake fans wrong. So it doesn't matter which side that you're on. Let's all be honest here. The man broke records. The man got the top 5 number one songs in the country, and we're not even talking about rappers at this point. He has knocked down Taylor Swift. He has knocked down the massive hit with Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. Can we all, whatever bias we have, give this man his flowers? Salute to both artists. See you guys next time. I sign.